Please join me in singing hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. You can change the world with your love. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. You are like no other being. What you can give, no other can give. To the future of our precious children, to the future of the world where we live. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. You can change the world with your love.
Hello and welcome to this virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro. We come together as a caring community in many ways, calling each other on the phone, emailing, meeting casually but socially distanced in the park around the bandstand. Also leaving each other meals on the doorstep when we're needing a little extra help. Sharing in the caring of our community by participating, for example, in the Verona Food Pantry with all the appropriate precautions. And by coming together for virtual coffee hours using the Zoom meeting platform to see each other's faces and hear each other's voices, even when our level of reasonable precaution keeps us apart. So this virtual service aims to fill in for some of the functions of our Sunday morning service, but we realize it is one piece of many in maintaining our connections and our sense of community. So welcome again to this service. I am Pat Peason. My wife and Sue and I have been a part of this family for about 15 years, and it is clearly the foundation of our spiritual life. Most of our friends we met here. People we trust, respect, and have a whole lot of fun with. We also resonate deeply with the principles this congregation beholds, and more importantly, the wisdom, compassion, and humor that these members live by. Long ago, Edwin Markham, who lived from 1852 to 1940, was sometimes called the Universalist Poet Laureate. He wrote these words that Unitarian Universalists often use to state our intention and also our aspiration for greater, ever-expanding inclusion. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. The congregation voted in 2004 to make the commitments of a welcoming congregation, and we welcome LGBTQ persons and celebrating their lives and relationships as a religious commitment and welcoming full participation in every area of their lives. This is an expression of our Unitarian Universalist faith. and we continue to grow in our understanding of the various ways that we as humans are in relation to sex, gender, and every way of expression that expands that commitment and grows our circle wider. While we did not have a certification named specifically for us, our path, we've joined our hearts with the Unitarian Universalists everywhere to side with the oppressed and marginalized, to amplify their voices. And those of us who are white learn to step back from directing the effort and to follow the lead of Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, and people of color, working to dismantle racism and white supremacy, because they are the system of inequity that still dominates our world. There are so many areas of learning and commitment we would include more fully as we expand the circle and realize it isn't even ours to keep small, even if that is more comfortable in some moments. And so we kindle the chalice of our hearts this morning with these familiar words. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our power, to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of Freedom.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell a story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Our words of prayer today are by Tamara Labak. God of many names, you who has endowed us with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, let us remember this day that in this country there is no national religion, there is no superior race, there is no preferable gender or orientation. We gather holding a common value that the glory of this country rests first and foremost in its diversity. Out of many ideas, out of many beliefs, out of many views, out of many voices, out of many passions, out of many experiences, we are one. Help us, O God, to never forget that we need not be alike to live and love alike. We ask for forgiveness this day for our national and individual transgressions. When we have chosen inaction or silence in the face of injustice and the abuse of power, and our failure to claim our own, we ask for forgiveness for when we have not known our own neighbor, fed our hungry, or equipped our future generation with knowledge and love. We ask for a blessing on this nation according to our own faith and forms, and pledge our voice in support of moving closer and closer to true freedom. These and the prayers of our hearts, our unspoken joys and sorrows, we now pray in the stillness.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. As a song leader, one of the songs that I keep returning to, particularly in these days of uprising and reckoning, is Ella's Song, written by Dr. Bernice Johnson Regan and performed by Sweet Honey in the Rock. Its lyrics, which I know some of you are already very familiar with, set to music the words of Ella Baker, an organizer, activist, leader, teacher, a prophet in the civil rights movement. Until the killing of Black men, Black mothers' sons, becomes as important to the rest of the country as the killing of a white mother's son, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it happens. Ella Baker's words in this song are ones she wrote over 50 years ago, but they could have been written yesterday. And I'll be honest, that reality breaks my heart. It leaves me crying out, will it ever end? For some of us, that question is one that has literal life and death implications that the rest of us cannot fully know. And as much as Ella Baker's words break my heart, they also charge my spirit. Their relevance to today's manifestation of resistance and community reminds me that we are a continuation of something much bigger, much more powerful, much more incredible than this single moment in our history. Our struggles to affirm the humanity and basic rights of Black and brown lives in this country and world, they did not begin with us, and they will not end with us. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Now, I admit it took me several years of singing these words to realize that Ella Baker probably wasn't telling me, Renwadiot Mustafa Taha Hamami, personally to never rest. No. In fact, none of us as individuals should be asked or expected to never rest. But all of us who believe in freedom, as a collective, as a community, we cannot rest. Ella's song, Ella's words are a charge for all of us together as a movement to never rest. We cannot stop fighting, we cannot stop creating, we cannot rest until freedom in its truest and most universal form exists in our world. Our faith as Unitarian Universalists who don't all agree on what happens after this life can all believe that what happens in this life matters so deeply that we have been called heretics, broken unjust laws, and probably gotten ourselves on more than one government list to make it known that we will not rest until freedom for every last one of us comes. And to be that unceasing, everlasting, perseverant, irritatingly prophetic movement that never rests, we need to reaffirm, deepen, and reaffirm our connections to each other as Unitarian Universalists. To remember that if we do this work together, we can not rest. And just as important, to be a true continuation of that much bigger, much more powerful, much more incredible freedom movement, we not only need to sustain our relationships within our faith, but we must build and sustain the relationships with communities and frontline liberators who have been leading the way to universal freedom for generations. We who believe in freedom cannot rest and cannot rest when we act as a truly interdependent collective. When we are carrying our load on the way to liberation, remembering that we are part of a movement reminds us that we are not carrying that load alone. Like a choir whose singers stagger their breathing to make sure a single note remains an unbroken sound, or a hospital that runs non-stop with a rotating staff, like migrating geese who take turns leading, following, or resting in their flying formation. We cannot rest, and we cannot rest until freedom comes if we sustain our connections to one another. We need each other so that when we as individuals do rest, we know our movement towards universal freedom carries on, waiting for us to return and temporarily relieve another of their liberation load. As we count down the days to Election Day, we know that no matter the outcomes, our work will continue. We will not rest. We can not rest if we take care of each other and our shared vision for universal freedom that is possible, knowing that each and every one of us is doing the same for all of us. And knowing that our collaboration in this moment is a continuation of a movement that knows there will come a day when we, all of us who believe in freedom, can finally rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Prayer Ballot by Luke Stevens Royer. I walk in, as on pilgrimage. The altar cloths are red, white, and blue. The ushers are the women who have been running these things, who have been running everything since before I was born. I'm handed the ballot like a scroll, because the questions seem that important, ancient and modern, of what my God and country ask of me. Who? Who for commissioner, mayor, president? Who for District 8 and Ward 7 school board? Who will do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly? I make my mark, with at least a shred of hope that something good will come from this. And regardless, I remember the world won't be destroyed entirely by this. The world won't be saved entirely by this. Making my vote is like kneeling in prayer, because neither will accomplish anything right away. But the purpose of both is to remind me of my deepest hope for the world that I am trying to help create. So I rise from prayer and turn in my ballot and remember the who is me and us and we the people. And again I step to the task that is mine: justice, mercy, humble service in my small corner of the world.
Was grace and mercy brought me through. I'm living this moment wrapped in love's truth. Twas grace and mercy brought me through. 'Twas grace and mercy brought me through. I'm living this moment wrapped in love's truth. Hallelujah.
I was 13 years old when I became a Unitarian Universalist. I was raised in this faith, but I was 13 when I claimed it as my own. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was waiting for my parents to finish their committee meetings after service. All the other kids had left, and I was bored. I wandered into the visitor's corner, and a little red wallet card caught my eye. It said in bold letters on the front, "What do Unitarian Universalists believe?" My 13-year-old self wondered, what do Unitarian Universalists believe? As I read the 10 statements written by the Reverend David O. Rankin, in my heart, in my soul, as I read those words, I said, yes, this is what I believe. One phrase in particular planted itself in me like the deepest truth, and I never forgot it. We believe in the motive force of love. It was in that moment when I knew that this was my religion. I start with this story to ground the work of UU the Vote in our theology, which is its foundation and its inspiration. This year marks the 250th anniversary of what we celebrate as the beginning of universalism in the United States. It was on September 30th, 1770, that Universalist John Murray preached his first sermon on this continent. And the truth that I read in that little red wallet card, the truth I've never forgotten, is the message of universalism. 250 years ago, in the context of religious notions of God rooted in punishment, damnation, and the division of humanity between worthy and unworthy, saved and damned, the idea of universal salvation, that God's love is unconditional, that no one is cast out, and that salvation is not individual but collective, was radical and liberating. Universalism proclaimed that humanity was bound together in a common destiny, and that love is the thread that binds each of us to the other and everyone to creation. Universalists believed that God is love. They also believed in hell. They just believed that it existed here and now on the earth. The great Universalist preacher Hosea Ballou was clear about how politicians and those in power used fear, stoked fear, to protect their greed and corruption and self-interest, and he knew the suffering that resulted from that. Rather than speak of theology in terms of speculative notions of God, Ballou spoke of it in terms of human experience here and now and our relationships to each other. A society that lives out the motive force of love would be one that fosters joy and liberation and thriving for all people. This is the highest calling of our faith as Unitarian Universalists, to live out, defend, and embrace this motive force of love in our lives, in our actions, in our commitments, and in our society. This is why UU the Vote says vote love. Today, in our context, we are witnessing the emboldening and authorization of ideologies rooted not in love and interdependence, but in domination, authoritarianism, and dehumanization. And just to be clear, this is not new. It has a long and deadly history on this continent, going back more than 400 years. And yes, even our Universalist ancestors came from that same lineage of Christian European conquest and limited the vision of universalism only to white society. A limit that we are still trying to redeem ourselves from. It is dehumanization that creates systems that put children in cages, that deny health care to our transgender siblings, that allow police violence and the murder of Black people to continue unabated and without accountability. dehumanization that allows triage protocols that devalue the lives of disabled people and that lead to systemic divestment from communities. The resources from housing to education, healthcare to jobs, and the criminalization of poverty. Just as Hosea Ballou named it, the tool of dehumanization, its propaganda is fear. Propaganda that tells us to fear our neighbor, that we are not family and kin, but enemies. This is the exact opposite of our theology of universalism that tells us that we have a common destiny and we are connected to one another in love. This is why You the Vote says vote, love, defeat, hate. And while the forces of dehumanization and domination have always been a part of U.S. history, so too have been those who have resisted and organized for the values of dignity, equity, humanity, and love. These days are heartbreaking, they're infuriating, and they're frightening. On days when I lose my own strength, I turn to the words of Alice Walker, who reminds us, we remember our ancestors because it is an easy thing to forget, that we are not the first to suffer, rebel, fight, love, and die. The grace with which we embrace life in spite of the pain and the sorrow is always a measure of what has gone before us. We remember our ancestors, theological, familial, and in movement. We remember Francis, Ellen Watkins Harper, Hosea Ballou, John Brown, Sitting Bull, Ida B. Wells, Dr. King, Anne Braden, and so many more whose names history does not remember. Those who struggled and risked and fought and loved for the principles of justice, equity, liberty. This is why in You the Vote, we say vote love, we say defeat hate, because, dear ones, we are on a precipice. Every single one of our most deeply held values is on the line right now. The current powers in government are showing in everything they do that the inherent worth and dignity of so many immigrants, Black people, disabled folks, trans and queer people does not matter to them. Human agency, interdependence, the democratic process are being disrupted and defiled daily. It is a radical act of faith to not only continue to believe in all of our cherished principles, but to demand them by speaking out, taking risks, organizing, leveraging our resources, and building networks of solidarity and power to protect one another and these values. We are on a precipice, and our actions right now will affect whether we have a chance to continue to bring our bold values forward, to rebuild, expand, and strengthen our democracy, to confront police violence, to upend racial inequity, to change divestment from communities, and make moves to protect the climate. Now is the time to draw on the grace, the courage, and the strength of all those who went before, to widen our comfort zones, and to do all we can to vote love and defeat hate. If you haven't taken any form of action yet, sign up for a shift with You the Vote. I can tell you that it's fun. And if you've written postcards to voters, but you feel nervous about phone banking, do it with your fellow UUs. And if you've been all in with You the Vote from the beginning, keep it up and start planning for how you will show up and organize after November 3rd. Because democracy will not be restored in one election. It's been under systemic attack for decades, and justice will not roll down like waters in one election. Voting matters. It's absolutely critical, but it is not the end. It is just one piece of the long haul work of organizing for a future where all are free and where all can thrive. Will you show up in the streets, set up to contribute to a bail or legal assistance fund, open your church building to protesters needing refuge from state repression, tap into your own endowment or discretionary funds to make sure that grassroots organizers have the funds they need for their work? There is so much to do. And our faith calls us to love more radically, to give more generously, to believe more fervently that another world is possible, and be willing to be all in for that future. As you've heard me say many times before, this is no time for a casual faith, no time for a casual commitment to what you hold most dear. And this is no time to go it alone. Friends, we are in this work together. I invite you to be deeper in this work of You the Vote with us. May we remember that we are held by love always. May we remember that we are held by and with one another. And may we all together be all in today, tomorrow, next month, and next year for justice, for love, for democracy, and for a future that is free and thriving for all people. May it be so.
Hello, we are Adrian and AJ Young, and we are here to give you a gentle reminder that early voting is underway.
Yes, there's no better time like the present to get down to the local city offices here in the city of Waynesboro and cast your ballot. You're going to go to the Gorsuch building on Wayne Avenue. You'll walk right through the front door. A guard will meet you there. Take your keys, cell phone, go through. The process is pretty much painless, and you'll be in and out of there about 10 minutes.
Nothing could be easier or more important. This is probably the most important election of our lives that any of us can remember. So we need everybody to vote and vote early. Okay? So all you got to do is plan to go to the registrar's office, go in there, just like AJ said, we were 102 and 103.
Right.
So join us. Join us in that group of early voters.
We are in the home stretch, folks. 30 days.
30 days.
30 days until the biggest election of our lifetime will be underway. And so we encourage you all to get down, do it now, do it as soon as you're able to do it, and we'll see you guys at the finish line. Peace.
Vote.
Please join me in hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free, free from hate and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Our words of benediction today are penned by Darcy Roque. There is too much hardship in this world not to find joy every day. There's too much injustice in the world not to right the balance every day. There's too much pain in this world not to heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us now do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and filled with more grace of divine presence every day. Amen, and blessed be.